Welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs. Here are your hosts, Julie Fudge Smith and Colleen Pelar.
Hi, welcome back to Your Family Dog. I'm Colleen Pelar, and as always, I'm here with Julie Fudge Smith. And today I was thinking that we wouldn't have a specific topic per se, but just sort of talk about what was going on in our lives, dog-related speaking, because I think one of the things that happens with families with dogs is that you're always factoring the dogs into your decisions. You have upcoming trips, you have plans, you're thinking about things, and how does the dog fit into all of that? And Julie just recently moved. So tell us a little bit about the move and what you did to help that work well for Zuzu.
Well, that's it's a temporary move. So in some ways it was different than a full move because we didn't have to pack the house or buy a new house or do any of that stuff because we moved to Princeton for the year because my husband got a fellowship here at the university for the academic year. But nonetheless, there was some packing, especially books and clothes. And so I actually wrote about it in my blog a little bit. So we'll put a link to my blog. The thing that I found for Zuzu, because as we all know, Zuzu's special. She's a sweetheart of a dog, but she does some anxieties. And so it was hard for Zuzu to see the boxes piling up in my office of books. She kind of like, what's the deal here, Mom? She'd get kind of excited, a suitcase, and she'd get excited. I'd pull out a box and she'd get excited and kind of nervous. So one of the things I did to help her with the whole move is that, one, I tried to remember to play with her every day. So that even if I was really busy, I tried to take time every day to do something that she really enjoyed so that would ease the tension. It wasn't always something odd happening in the house, but Mom was taking time to do something with me that I really liked, whether it was a good long walk or we'd play fetch or do something that really helped, that she really enjoyed. The second thing was I as much as possible, kept her with me, especially during the move part. Because for me, it was a transitional move. I had to go to our cottage for a homeowners association meeting. I was on the audit committee. So I had to go to the cottage for a night. And then we went to Brad's cousins for a night. And then finally got to Princeton. But in each of those stages, I minimized the amount of time that I left Zuzu alone. And when we went to Brad's cousin's house, they wanted to go out and I'm like, nah, I'll just stay here. You know? We didn't go anywhere from the house until we'd been there 2 or 3 hours, and Zuzu was fairly settled in. And then when we went, it was just to a neighbor's house for dinner, and we didn't stay very long. So I tried to keep Zuzu with me as much as possible to try and ease that for her. And then when we got to Princeton, one of the first things I did when we got here was I got her tennis ball out, and we have a nice big backyard, and she and I played in the backyard. So one of her very first introductions to Princeton was playing in the backyard. Mm-hmm. And I did that before I really started even moving anything in.
Meanwhile, Brad's toting things in from the car. Hey, Julie!
I'm sorry, but apparently a game of fetch is a whole lot more important. And I also did things like I brought her favorite bed. Now, her favorite bed, of course, is the biggest bed. Of
course it is.
And so it took up a good part of the car top carrier, but it had to come. And Brad was like, get that. I mean, I really have a very cooperative husband about these things. So we brought her favorite bed, and that got put in my office. And I brought her favorite toys like Blobby, which is her favorite big round purple blob. Mm-hmm. I mean, Blobby had to come, and I think he's right behind me.
Well, yeah, but, I mean, if you're going away for a year, you need your favorite stuff. We're not talking about a weekend away when you could maybe live without Blobby in the big bed. You need these things.
You do need these things. So I think the 3 key things that I did was to make sure that, 1, we had playtime. 2, I kept her with me as much as possible to reduce that level of anxiety. And 3, made sure that her favorite things were with her. So
one other change that occurred is that she's no longer living in a house with as many people. Have you seen any changes for her with regard to that? Yes, I have.
What I would say is I've kept her on her anti-anxiety medication for now because the transition between households I didn't think was a good time to transition off of medication. But one thing I have noticed is a reduction in the amount of time she goes to spend alone in our house in where does I lived? Granville.
You lived in Ohio.
In Ohio. In Ohio, in my office, there was a label on the gate of my office that said Zuzu's alone zone. So that if Zuzu needed to get away from the chaos of living with 8 people, she had a place to go. And she would frequently go to my office and lay down underneath the DAP diffuser. Here, she's constantly under my feet or she's on the couch. She doesn't take off for time alone as much. Her little idiosyncrasies that she has, like she does this little cheddary cheek thing. She chatters her teeth. That doesn't happen very often. A couple of times when she's really excited, her teeth have chattered. So yeah, I think that she's just in general more relaxed. And one of my aims, hopefully by the end of the year, is to wean her off her anti-anxiety meds. Some dogs need to have them their entire lives, and I get that. But I don't think Zuzu is one of those. So we're going to try and wean her off in a calmer environment. One thing that's interesting I did find is that we walk a lot more here. So she and I are walking 2 to 4 miles a day, more so than we walked in Granville. And it's also, Princeton is a lovely little town, but it is busier. And so that took a little bit of Zuzu getting used to. It was like, oh my goodness, there's so many more rumbly trucks and cars. And so it took her a longer time to relax into her walks. But I just noticed, I just mentioned to my husband yesterday that one of the things I've noticed, she and I went back to Ohio for about a week or so and then came back. And she's like, oh, I'm so excited to be home. Great for walking. And she just was a lot more relaxed. She was right at my side. She was like, oh, we can snap and we can eat deer poop and we can have, all this fun on our walk. So it's like she's finally decided this is home.
Which is great. And how long have you been there now? So
6 weeks to 7 weeks.
That's pretty good. If she's just like at this point, like that, this is home. That's really good. I think people underestimate sometimes how long it takes.
Yes.
For them and also for their dog to feel like this is home. And so it's awesome that you could tell that so clearly for her.
Yeah. She still is not fond of garbage trucks. I just got to say, but they're loud. They're rumbly. They come rearing up to you. They're not my favorite truck either, because I'm not a 5-year-old boy. So there are a few things that are still a little unnerving. But yes, in general, she seems to be much more comfortable. So what's new in your world of dogs, Colleen?
Well, the most interesting thing that's been going on in my world of dogs is, as you know, I have just one dog, and I've said that he doesn't really want me to have another dog. And so that has been my plan. However, there's a chance that plan might change. And a friend of our family is 80 years old, and she adopted a dog in December after her friend, the dog's original owner, died. So this dog was a companion to an older woman who died, and now an older woman has taken him in, and she loves him. She loves him. But she's feeling like he's a bit much for her. She's not had a dog for 40 years, and she's a little overwhelmed by some of the pieces of that. And of course, I went in, shortly after she adopted him and gave her some strategies, trying not to completely overwhelm her. Hi, you haven't had a dog in 40 years. Here are my 82,000 suggestions for how you should live your life. I was like, main points. What do I want?
Now, did you try to rearrange your furniture? Because that's what we usually do.
I know. And change everything. So I did encourage her to put away. She has lots and lots of prayer cards all over her house. And I had said, there's a really good chance a new dog in your house might chew some of those up. So if they're really important to you, we might want to put them away. But he didn't. He's been awesome. He's been a lovely dog for her. But she alternates between, when the weather is bad, maybe he's too much for her. And anyway, a while back, she said to my mom, do you think Colleen would take the dog, to take Winston? And I was
Winston! Oh, what a cute name. What is he? Is he a bulldog?
Well, according to her, he's a Maltese. According to me, he's like a Yorkie mix. But we're going to call him a Maltese.
Name Winston,
because that's what his name was. And so we're in this sort of difficult situation where I think he's absolutely charming. And I think if you were going to pick a dog for an 80-year-old woman to have as her first dog after a 40-year gap, Winston is it. But I went over there recently, and she was just really struggling with a couple of small Winston-related things. And I gave her some strategies for helping with those. And at this time, I think Winston is going to stay in his home, which I think is great for her, and I think it's great for him. And I think Edzo's probably going, okay, good. But there's a part of my heart that went like, Winston might need a home, and I might know a home for Winston. And I know that Edzo could handle that. So there's that little moment of like, what is best for everyone, and what is best for Edzo, I don't know. Because he would get more exercise and more activity with another dog in the house. Mm-hmm. He's at least 13. Like, we don't know how old he is, but he's a minimum of 13. But he's pretty healthy and looks pretty good. But he's not just a huge other dog fan. But he's not bad with them either. He's lived with previous dog with me. So it's that piece right now where I'm content with that Winston is happy with Carol, where he is. And Carol is currently happy, but I keep thinking when the ice starts coming down and there's sleet and she's going, I have to put a leash on and go out with this dog, and I don't know. And she has had multiple periods of thinking she just can't do this. And right. I'm torn between, I hope you can't do it. And of course you can do it. You love him. So selfish me and supportive me are battling it out.
Well, it's so difficult for me sometimes in dealing with my more senior clients, that I want them to have the companionship of an animal, especially if they're living alone. That can make all the difference in their mental and emotional health. But I also get that you got to be really careful about the dog that it is, and that there are issues that perhaps don't come into play with younger owners, like, even walking a small dog in the ice and snow is a huge thing if you have brittle bones.
Yeah.
And, I don't regulate temperature well, or, I broke my hip once. I'm not planning on doing it again.
Exactly.
And so I'm sure that she's in conflict too about, what is best for Winston, what's best for me. I had a friend who's, she got a dog for her dad, so to prevent him from actually going on the internet and buying a dog. And we tried really hard to make this dog work in his household, and it just was not happening. Mm-hmm. And we tried for months and various strategies, and I came up with games for him to play with the dog that, because he had his mental faculties were reduced a little bit from age. Ended up, the dog went to live with my friend, and he comes over a couple, 3 times a week and spends time with his dog. And that seems to be a pretty good solution.
Yeah.
It worked out for them, but it was just heart-wrenching, because one of the things that it also pointed out to her what my dad actually can and cannot do.
Right. That
he used to be able to do.
I have had conversations with some clients where we've talked about how amazing a cat can be. And I love cats, but I am a dog crazy person. But I have had some clients where it's just easier to manage a cat and to live with a cat, and to know that, you know what, I am not cleaning the litter box this morning and I'll get to it in a few hours. Whereas if a dog needs to go to the bathroom, dog needs to go to the bathroom. So we're taking the dog out, or we're having to create an indoor potty area for the dog and deal with those ramifications too. But there are a lot of complicating factors. And that is not to say older people shouldn't have dogs. I have a client right now, they're in their 70s, and they've just adopted a Labrador mix. And he's so cute. He's 10 weeks old. And the number one goal is for this dog to never, ever, 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 ever jump on anyone. And I just said a 10-week-old Labrador mix. So, okay. And
well, at least
the reason for that. What? Yeah, we do have a goal.
And have a clear, focused goal.
The reason for that is that the woman has osteoporosis and has already broken 8 bones. And so I said, I don't think you're too old for this dog, but because of the health issues, I'm concerned about that. So we are making this like we are, no kidding, training this. And in the 1 week gap between lessons, this dog was awesome. They are taking it very, very seriously, and they're lifelong dog owners, and they love dogs and all of that. But the husband did say to me at the first lesson, "Are we too old for this dog?" I was like, "No, you're not too old for this dog." But 8 previous broken bones and a Labrador puppy, yikes. There's a whole lot of puppy exuberance we've got to get through before I feel safe that we're not going to have an accidental, even just run through the house like a lunatic after, like, whoa, look, the cat moved and I ran too and bumped into a human who then broke her arm.
Yeah, that's, I agree. It's not that you're too old. It's just, wow, this is a serious issue that we have to address seriously.
Right.
But sometimes it's great to have that sort of focused goal, to have that really clear goal. This is the one thing that I need to achieve, because surprisingly, I find if we have a super clear focus, so many other things are achieved as well.
Yes.
So if we get this really clear focus that this dog can never, ever, ever jump on anybody, ever, 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 wow, what does that mean? That means we have a rock solid sit. That means we have a rock solid stay. That means we have a rock solid down. It means we have, maybe even a rock solid stand stay.
And lots of eye contact and being rewarded for that and checking in.
Right.
All of those pieces building together, because everyone recognizes the risk if we mess up, as opposed to in most other families, we're like, well, he's a puppy and he'll get there eventually. There's lots of chances to rehearse behavior we don't want. But when it's a big priority, and they've been awesome. This couple's really working very, very hard with their dog. And he's adorable and a cutie. But so I'm not, nobody's asked me if I will take him in. But that call about Winston was very interesting because it shook my world. I had not been anticipating adding anyone to my home.
Well, and you haven't had a small dog before. You tend to be a larger dog person.
I know.
So that's a whole new endeavor as well.
It's an interesting thing because my dog's nickname is Little Dog. So I was joking with Jack about it because, I'll call him that. I'm like, Little Dog, do you want to go down and watch TV? Little Dog, you want to go for a walk? Because he is the smallest dog I've ever owned and he's like 40 pounds. And so I was like, oh, that would be really funny if we actually brought in this 12.5-pound dog, and I'm going, Little Dog, and I mean the big one.
That's right. And you could call the little dog Big Dog, because it probably has a big dog attitude.
There we go.
But, it's funny. I always thought of myself as a little dog person. I always thought that I was going to be the less than 30 pounds, not the miniature dogs, but smaller dogs, the 20 to, I had a Shih Tzu that was pushing 20, so we used to say he was big boned. I always thought I was small until I got our first big dog, and then I went, oh, holy cow, I am a big dog person. I never even knew it. It's just, so you might be a little dog person and you didn't even know it, Colleen.
There is a possibility. I will say a million years ago, 27 years ago, when I started dog training, I thought that I was not a little dog person. And I was using force-based methods. That's what I had been taught, and that's what I was using, and I didn't really like little dogs because they just didn't do very well in my classes. And then when I learned a lot more and realized, oh, the problem is not little dogs. The problem is really bad trainer. I found little dogs quite charming and interesting and fun. And so I've had lots of little dogs that have captured my heart over the years, but there's never been one in my house. Well, there is, of course, mine, little dog right now, Edzo, the 40-pound version. But there are some advantages of smaller dogs because with Gordo,
absolutely,
his last few days were really rough. And he was a Labrador. And one of my sons carried Gordo into the car for me one day because I couldn't get him in. And that son doesn't live here. So those kinds of things.
Maybe you could rent somebody.
Yeah. Just being able to manage my own dog, there are some benefits to that. As I age, I may be thinking smaller. We'll see. I don't know. I'm not that old, but on the other hand, I expect my dogs to live a very long time because I don't like that period when
oh no,
that's not cool. So
that's a horrid period.
That's a horrid period. No. So any dog that comes in stays.
That's right. I had a similar experience. We've talked about this before when Zuzu got caught in the weasel trap or the raccoon trap. And I had to carry her, and she's not huge. She's about 55 pounds or so. But, I was struggling up a hill with her, and I had to sort of manage Bear as well. And Bear was really good. He just stayed right with me. But to try and carry her effectively and not jar that leg, it was exhausting to try and move her. And that's why I finally ended up realizing if I try to carry her all the way back to the cottage, this is going to take, a couple of days. So I tethered her to a tree so that she couldn't get to her leg, and then ran back to the cottage and was able to get back to the car much more quickly than if I had tried to carry her. But it really drove home to me that, 55 pounds may not be that big a deal when I'm lifting her in the car, but it's a whole big deal when I have to try and, move her any distance. And I remember when our rebel, or whatever we used to call him, our Confederate trenching setter, because we found him in a trench on the Chancellorsville battlefield in Virginia. And he had myelin degeneration along his spine. And so he began to lose. One of the first things he lost was that he had this wonderful tail that would wave like a helicopter. So first things to go, then he also lost control of his rear end. So to take him for walks, Brad would put him in the wagon and pull him around the neighborhood so he could, sniff and get out and stuff like that. So thinking about that, it's like, how often am I going to be able to lift a dog into a wagon? If I have a small Winston, I can tuck Winston under my arm and we can go for a walk or whatever. So it does become an issue when you get older, when odd things happen, like weasel traps and, myelin degeneration, that you need to begin to think about, can I actually manage this dog?
Yeah.
But I did have a revelation the other day about dogs.
A revelation about dogs. Let's hear it.
Well, Brad, here in Princeton, I know no one except for Zuzu and Brad. So my entire existence is wrapped around walking around Princeton with Zuzu and seeing Brad. Although I have one friend, so I was pretty excited about that. She's one of the other fellows with Brad, and she goes to museums with me. But anyway, she's busy working. Go figure. Not at my beck and call. But anyway, so Brad had to go out of town for 5 days. So it ended up, so who do I know in Princeton? Zuzu, right? But it occurred to me how integral dogs are to my very mental health, because I realized that if I didn't have Zuzu, who forced me to go out for these 2 to 4 hour, these 2 to 4 mile walks a day, I would have just stayed in my nice little apartment all day and saw no one except at the grocery store. And I realized that if Brad, heaven forbid, should go first, because that will just devastate me. So I told him, I said, I've got to die first, just FYI.
Good to have a plan.
I try to plan for the future. But if he were to go first, it's absolutely essential that I have a dog. Absolutely essential that I have a dog. Because if I don't, then I will become that crazy woman that just lives by herself and never goes out except to go get, Brussels sprouts at the grocery store.
I will never become the woman who goes to get Brussels sprouts at the grocery store. No matter what happens to me in my life, I can guarantee that right now. I will not be that woman buying Brussels sprouts.
I don't buy them very often because Brad doesn't like them. And I didn't like them for years, but then I found out how to cook them, so I like them. But I don't buy them because Brad doesn't eat them. And then, I like Brussels sprouts, but I can't eat an entire bag of Brussels sprouts. But anyway, nonetheless, okay, I won't be the woman going to the grocery store to buy milk, eggs, chocolate, that kind of stuff. That's the only reason I go out. So dogs are just critical to my whole sense of well-being and connectedness to the rest of the world. Because even when I don't know anybody, we wave, we talk to the crossing guard,
Yes. And I think that is one of the things that Carol is finding about having Winston. That she is getting out and she is seeing some neighbors and she's having even brief conversations that she wouldn't have been having before. Because she does have some health issues. And so it's a tough spot for her because she really enjoys him and she talks to him all the time. She said, I don't realize how much during the day I'm talking to him. I'm like, oh, I bet I realize. Pretty sure there's that much conversation going on in my house too. Hey, little dog, you want to go watch TV? So, but dogs do provide such a lovely rhythm to our days and context and purpose. It's time to go for a walk, and we're not going to walk fast because I have things to sniff. Awesome. Good. Because otherwise I would have rushed you, and I would have been thinking of all the things I needed to get done, but clearly we need to smell this right now. Here we are.
That's right. In fact, in our walk today, we were doing a lot of sniffing, so finally I said, Zeus, you've sniffed a lot. Mommy's got to go potty too. We need to hustle on home. So things like that.
Yep.
Yeah, you do try to accommodate, and you just realize too that it's just all these odd little things. It's just healthier because I get out and I get fresh air and I get a walk in or two a day, and that would be so easy to avoid if I didn't have to go out and do it.
Absolutely. So another dog thought that just crossed my mind of something that's coming up is my niece is getting married on November 3rd. It's all very exciting, and she has a beloved little dog named Ernie. He's a something. I don't know. Chihuahua Dachshund mix something. I don't know what he is, but he's little and he's feisty and he's smart and he's clever. And she really, really, really wants to have some photos with him. So there's a whole contingent of arrangements to get Ernie to and from locations, because guess what? The bride will be a little busy. And so it's sort of funny. One of my sons has been assigned the duty of taking Ernie from the church where some photos are being done back to her parents' house. And Ernie's going to spend the night there. And he was so happy. He was like, yay, I'm on Ernie duty. I get to have time with the dog. But I think it's just another one of those sweet contexts to her that, yeah, it's a huge hurdle, and it would have been easier just to find someone to dog sit him for the weekend. But he's a part of the family, and he means so much to her that she wants him to be a part of the day. And I think that's really sweet and awesome. And
I do too.
We're finding ways to make it work. He's not coming to the wedding. He is appearing between the wedding and the reception at photo time. But because he is important, he lives 2 hours away from where the wedding is, but he will be local for the wedding because...
Does he have a tuxedo? Did they rent a tuxedo for Ernie?
I believe he has a bow tie, but I was afraid to ask because I would prefer he didn't have a tuxedo. And what if the answer was yes?
Right. The bow tie is no different than a collar per se.
Yes.
But the whole tuxedo thing, yeah, I agree. Most dogs don't really like being dressed up.
Yeah, most don't.
Did you know that there was a cat at Emma's wedding?
I did not know there was a cat at Emma's wedding.
Yes. Well, that's because my older daughter.
Yes, I did. Now
just a few days before, right? A few days, maybe 4 days before her sister's wedding, a cat gave birth to kittens in her bushes, and took all of the kittens except for one. And so they took the cat to the vet, and they said, yeah, like maybe 48 hours if you're lucky. And here's some kitten formula, and good luck, because he probably won't survive, but you got to try. So Ellie, bless her heart, then my grandson named her Strumpy. So Strumpy needed to be fed every 2 hours, and they have her little mouth wiped, her little bottom wiped. And so we was like, well, okay, Strumpy's coming to the wedding. And my assistant trainer at the time lived on a farm, and so she gladly took over these Strumpy ministrations. So Strumpy was in the bride's room during the wedding, and then got transported to the reception, where she was in my sister's room at the hotel. And then my assistant trainer went every couple hours to check on Strumpy. And but Emma's like, of course Strumpy's coming to the wedding.
Of course.
What am I going to say? No, let's let the cat die. I'm not going to be responsible for that. So anyway, the things we do.
And Strumpy is alive and well these days, right?
Well, Strumpy's alive. And she's well. I mean, physically she's well. Let's put it this way. Strumpy has a hard time knowing how to cat.
Yeah.
Okay? She does.
Because her mother abandoned her when she was just so very little?
So Strumpy used to like me, but now Strumpy scares me. So I'll open the door to go up to the third floor where Strumpy lives. And if Strumpy's on the stairs, it's like, okay, yes, I'm done.
It's like the raccoon in your attic. Whoa, yeah. Hi, Strumpy.
But no, Strumpy's doing well. And Strumpy likes it when we're not there because then she gets the run of the house. And then she does earn her keep. She'll get the mice and, that kind of stuff. So,
well, that's good.
Anyway.
Well,
yes.
We've had quite the rambling conversation today, but I think it did fit the whole theme of, like, what are your thoughts about the dogs in your life right now? So we kind of hit right. It. Maybe.
Yeah. Well, you're going to have to give us a Winston update. You're going to have
for
to
now, we're going to leave it at that Winston is happy in his home, because I believe that's true, okay. And that I am going to be happy that Winston is happy in his home. And if that changes, I will let everyone know.
Okay, that sounds great. And I will let you know how the weaning off of the medication goes, because one of the things that I decided to do is I actually have a weaning protocol, so I can begin to see that if her idiopathic condition decreases, she hasn't gone straight off her meds. Mm-hmm. I can always boost her back up again. So we shall see. Awesome. All right, Colleen. Thanks.
Okay. Fun talking to you.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Colleen and Julie would love to hear them. Call 614-349-1661 or visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.